Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. Another double whammy, you get 2 episodes this week, so we are heating up. Same can't be said for the Eagles after whatever embarrassment that was on Sunday night, but we'll get to that. We're going to talk about all of that, the reaction to last night's game, what this means moving forward, and so much more as well. So again, if you are new around here, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. There is a link in the description below. It takes you straight to iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Hit subscribe on there. You get the podcast instantly on every device. And if you could rate it 5 stars, it means the absolute world. Again, the only way we grow is with your guys' support. And it's really cool to see this podcast kind of getting better and better each week. So if you could support us in doing that by rating it 5 stars, maybe leaving a nice little poem, a little haiku in the review section, that would be cool as well. But honestly, thank you so much for all of your support. We're going to have a lot of content this week on the phillysportsnetwork.com page and the YouTube channel. There's going to be a film room on Carson Wentz, and I think that really logically is the only place for this show to start. Now, what I want to, I guess, open up with is if you think to any situation, whether it's at school or work or what have you, and you're pissed off, you're angry, something's got you the wrong way. Maybe it was a customer that's been a bit passive-aggressive, got a bit sassy for no reason. Maybe it's a falling out with a colleague, or maybe you've brought some baggage from home into the workplace. If you're angry, if you're not 100% focused on the task at hand, what typically happens is that you don't perform up to your own standard. And by that I don't mean that you're suddenly not caring, although that probably is the case for some, but you try and cut corners to get the annoyance out of the way quicker. If you're dealing with a dodgy customer, maybe, just maybe, you'll charge them a little bit extra for that carrier bag. Which, you know, I definitely don't do that, so don't come at me, employer, please. But if you're in a situation where something's gone wrong, instead of following that procedure for said company, you're going to try and cut corners to get it finished quicker. You're going to fall maybe into old habits instead of following what you know you've grown into. So for instance, I mean, a really good example of this, and this is something everyone in retail does, I can 100% promise you, is if a customer comes up to the stock room and goes, I can't see any of these out on the shelf. Have you got any ink? Can you have a look for me? The colleague is going to go, of course, sir. Bear with me just 2 moments. You walk out the back, you get your phone out, you have a little look around, check Facebook, maybe refresh your Twitter mentions, post a Snapchat, go back out, nah, sorry lad, don't have any in stock. Completely gone today, come back tomorrow. That's the sort of thing. If you're angry at work, if you're a bit passive, your heart's not in it, you're going to start falling back into old habits or being complacent. You're not going to be at your best. You won't be giving the best experience you can. That's exactly what happened with Carson Wentz. There was a great shot, I say great shot, that's probably the wrong word, but there was a video clip of Carson Wentz on the sideline after that first interception, which was picked off by Marshawn Lattimore, and you could see him really riled up. Like, really riled up. And for a man that so many in this world believe to be calm and caring and kind and gentle and warm, we know he's a fierce competitor, but this is a side to Wentz that myself and very, very few people, I'm sure, have actually seen. That was a physical sense of frustration. And all you've got to do is look back to that game. You look back to Carson Wentz's stat line, I think it was his worst actual statistical game since getting into the National Football League. And it's really difficult to look at that without being slightly concerned. And you can make the excuses and say, well, Jason Kelce wasn't there, the offensive line wasn't great, the receivers weren't getting separation. Fine, but this isn't 2016. And I'm not saying that that's the sole reason that Carson Wentz was struggling, but to look at that line, to go and complete nearly 57% of passes, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns, for a 31 passer rating, a 12 quarterback rating. Do you know what Carson Wentz's lowest quarterback rating last year was? 51.5. Do you know what Carson Wentz's lowest quarterback rating was? Actually, well, that one was 9. Against the Minnesota Vikings, but he still threw a touchdown in that game. The only other time he has thrown no touchdowns and 2 picks was against the New York Giants. And even there he had a 58-yard pass. And even there he was asked to throw 47 times. And even there it was a 1-possession loss, where the offense put up 23 points. Last night, the Eagles put up 7. And that was on a rushing touchdown. I don't care about the receivers, the line, or the running backs. I'm not talking about the supporting cast or who Wentz is getting the ball to. I'm talking about the fact that all of a sudden, inside the pocket, Wentz is flat-footed. I'm talking about inside the pocket, Wentz is staring down receivers. I'm talking about inside the pocket, Wentz is misreading coverages now, and he's just throwing the middle finger in the air, flipping the bird, and launching a pass for the sake of it. I'm talking about when he's scrambling outside the pocket, he's looking for Golden Tate. There's no urgency. He's jogging around, gently flicking his finger to go forward, and then lobs an interception. That is not the Carson Wentz that is playing with that ferocity. Instead, the ferocity is playing him. And again, this isn't on the wide receivers or the running backs right now. We will get to that in due course. We are talking right now about Carson Wentz, the player. Forget what happens when the ball is in the air. Everything before that. Wentz is falling into old habits. If you remember from year 1 to year 2, the difference in footwork was absolutely ridiculous because he took out that off-season coaching program, got everything nailed down, and really just changed the way that he approaches the pocket. He was much lighter on his feet, very rarely steadied his feet until he had to plant that back foot, and would be more comfortable moving around. This year, now all of a sudden he's not. He's static in there at times. He's staring down receivers. We've seen the fumbles he's had this year. I mean, luckily he hasn't fumbled in 2 games now, which I'm pretty sure is his longest streak of the season, on that note. But Wentz in that game was anything but great. And this is a game we all knew. We said it on the pod before. Coming into this game, it would be put on Wentz's shoulders. This is an offense that is averaging over 40 yards a game, dropped 50 on the Bengals. You really think that this defense, with all the injury that it's had, and of course we will touch on that in just a little while as well, but you really think that offense is just suddenly going to lay an egg at home against a struggling Eagles team? It was always going to be an offensive blowout. Like, it had to be. It had to be a shootout or a blowout. And Wentz couldn't hang. Wentz couldn't hang atop. Wentz couldn't hang his coat. Carson Wentz could not hang that game. And you saw it so early on. The minute that interception was thrown, I was going to bet the game in play, because at that point the Eagles, I believe, were, because in England you can bet in play on the game, that the Eagles were plus 14.5. And I was like, the Eagles are catching 2 touchdowns again against the Saints. They're looking kind of good. I think they can get a rhythm going. I'd bet it. And I had it highlighted. I was ready to take off the rubber band, and Wentz throws that pick. And at that point, I'll either bet any other way or put my money back, because that is just not coming in. That is not the composed, methodical, well thought out quarterback that we used to see. And on that note, there's a big statistic that has been making the rounds today. And this is something where a lot of people are kind of misconstrued in this. And they're saying, oh, well, it's a war on Carson Wentz. It's not at all. Just listen to it. This is from Peter King, Monday Morning Quarterback. Fantastic website. Really, really insightful if you don't go on that already. Which I don't know why it wouldn't. It's a great site. The Eagles are 1-11 when Wentz plays, and they allow more than 26 points. Wentz is 0-9 when he passes for between 308 and 364 yards. Now, this was something that Sean Payton game planned for. He said in that article that the Saints game planned to attack Carson Wentz and Sidney Jones, who was coming off a hammy injury, as weak points. Weak points. Not the O-line, not the running game, nothing else. Wentz. A weak point. Now, Payton said that he respects the hell out of Carson Wentz as a player, but his analytics guy brought him that stat. Now, Kevin Kincaid, who is a fantastic writer, honestly, great guy, covered the Union for ages, now works at Crossing Broad, kind of quote tweeted it very sassily and was like, well, breakthrough revelation for the Saints analytics department. It's pro football focus level stuff. Do you know what? I totally agree with that. I completely understand that it is not the most ground shattering thing in the world. I think anyone can look at that and say, that's not good. Here's my problem with it. This is where, to me, it's not going to make sense. If the Saints pass defense, the Saints, of all teams in the NFL, that pass defense can hold Carson Wentz to 156 yards, 3 interceptions, What are the Texans going to do if they apply that same mentality? What are the Rams going to do if they apply that same mentality? You think that the Washington defense is watching that? And now without Alex Smith knowing that they've got to put the game on Wentz's shoulders, teams are now knowing that if you cannot marginalise an offense, you're not going to win. The Eagles don't have a run game. I'm not saying that is the sole problem here for Carson Wentz, but it was an easy game for the Saints to key out of, look at Carson Wentz and go, hey, let's put this on his shoulders, let's see what he can do. And he couldn't do anything. I'm not saying Carson Wentz is a bad quarterback. I'm saying that game, he fell into some very rookie habits. And I'll go back through those in a film room video because I think that simply it's needed to understand exactly why he regressed so much. Was it the frustration boiling over? Was it that angry customer where he's just, sent him on his way? It's absolutely possible. You look at someone like Cam Newton and compare it to Andrew Luck or Tom Brady. Andrew Luck will sometimes thump the floor and get annoyed. Very, very, very rarely do you see it impact his play. It's a one-play mentality. He's back on the field. He's slinging dimes. Matt Stafford's the same. I know this year's been a bit of a wild one. Got the most come-from-behind victories of many quarterbacks in this league. I think it's 13 at this stage. Actually, it's probably 14 after the other day. Then you compare that to a Cam Newton. Someone that lets their emotions get the better of them, that drive that performance. Cam is a generational talent at times. A new mould at 6'5", who can run like he's Darren Sproles. But when those emotions get the better of him, like that game against Denver, very different story. Now, Wentz is not on that spectrum just yet, but he has certainly showed a different side. And again, if you go into this game, if you look at the box score, if you see the statistics and the way that the Saints, without even trying, really, were able to hold the Eagles' running backs. I don't know what else. They ran the ball 12 times. New Orleans, who had an 87,000 possession lead, ran it 37. I mean, I know that they're trying to run the ball and they're trying to convert, but Mark Ingram had 103 yards on the day. Alvin Kamara had a 37-yard reception. That's a run game. Josh Adams carried the ball 7 times. He averaged 7.6 yards per carry. Corey Clement averaged 5. I mean, Wendell Smallwood averaged -4, but that's not the point. Those running backs should have got the ball more early on. They didn't, and the Eagles struggled as a result. But this has to come back slightly on Carson Wentz. We have to look at that game. And we can obviously blame the coaching, the players, the line, the injuries, the lack of run game, the wide receivers not getting separation. Absolutely, they all factor into it. But Wentz is not exempt from criticism just because he's the saviour of this team. And that has to be realised. If teams are going to strategise around putting the game on a quarterback's shoulders who can't close out games and now can't even start them, that's a problem. And he is not, I'm not saying let's go and start Nick Foles, let's give Nate the Great a run at the money here. But what I am saying is that Wentz in that game relapsed. Rookie errors came to fruition. They crept out of the woodwork. The footwork was, I don't know what is going on there. There's an advert. I didn't start the advert. I think that's ESPN being sassy. Sorry about that. But Wentz was lackadaisical. He was complacent. He was throwing the ball round for a prayer. They were looking at play action shots. He just launched it when there was double coverage. The safeties knew what was coming. He's trying to force the ball into targets that aren't there. Teams are now shutting down Zach Ertz, who, let's be honest, if you go back at his game log and have a look at the statistics, Zach Ertz has a total... let's have a look. So, apart from the Dallas game where he had 145 yards, Jacksonville, he had 26. New Orleans, he had 15. New York Giants, he had 43. He's slipping. Now, teams are keying in on him. And that's got to be concerning for Wentz, who obviously uses him as a security blanket. But the point I'm making is, before we get to anything else, let's start at where that ball is being thrown from. Carson Wentz has to be better. That is not the MVP caliber form we were looking at. He was complacent, staring down receivers, making plenty of errors. And if he was a retail worker, and a customer has come in and maybe given him a bit of a predicament, It is literally the equivalent of this story from an old workplace of mine. Now, I'm not going to name it, although it won't be of any relevance to anyone because, you know, I don't think this store exists in America. But I used to work at a DIY store, and there was an employee there that wasn't great, let's be honest. He was quite simple. I mean, as if you were to put him on a scale of, like, a comedy character, he would probably be in The Office. Like, it was really bad. But essentially, a pregnant woman comes in to a DIY store, and she's like, look, I need 15 boxes of tiles. Now, I can't carry them, I'm pregnant, and can someone get them for me? So I was like, yeah, do you know what, I'll get my colleague too, because I was working on the till. Colleague comes downstairs, he's like, right, do you know what, the tiles aren't on the shop floor, we have to get a forklift to get them down, can you give us 10 minutes? Sure, the woman says. She has to sit down, she's at the front of the store, everything's great. An hour passes, and the woman at this point is getting a bit frustrated. And she comes over to the till and she's shouting, demanding, where are the tiles, where's the guy, where's the manager, I need to chat, this is abysmal customer service. And I'm there with a headset on going, I don't know what I can do here, just, you know, hold on, I'm sure it'll figure out. I really don't understand what I can do, other than kind of reassure her, maybe give her a catalogue to look through. I couldn't really do much other than give her a glass of water. But anyway, as we're having this conversation, the employee comes out of the staff room, and I go, Darren, where are these tiles? Someone's been waiting an hour. Sorry, I went on my lunch. Now, if that is not the biggest flipping of the bird I have ever seen, I don't know what is. And the look on that woman's face when she looks at this employee with a smile having been on his lunch, it was like an eye contact choke slam. There was violence in that look. And that is what happened. Frustrations got the better. The guy couldn't be dealing with the company. He was eventually fired. That is essentially what we're looking at. But we're going to move on again. We've had 17 minutes talking about Carson Wentz. So if you're enjoying this show, make sure you hit that subscribe button, guys. It really does mean the way. If we want to change the way sports are reported on, and we want to end the hot takes, we want to end the shambolic reporting that some guys are putting out, and the things guys would just report on a radio just to try and get a few listens and angry callers. These are the sort of shows that need your support. If you want to change that landscape, make sure you hit that subscribe button, rate it 5 stars. But next up, and this will kind of mesh everything together, so it will start on one tangent and I know it's going to end up at the other end of the spectrum, because unfortunately that's how this game went, where everything just cluster fell at the same time. But one of the big knee-jerk reactions I saw, despite everything going on, despite the offensive inefficiency, the fact the defense didn't get a single sack on Drew Brees, hit him just once all game, the one takeaway that all I could see flooding social media was one that I really didn't think deserved that much justice, because it was kind of obvious. But it's a strange time we live in, ladies and gentlemen. So the main takeaway was, where's Golden Tate? Where is he? Look, the Eagles traded a 3rd round pick and he's not there, and he should be catching up the football and doing the runs after the Golden Tate? You're asking where Golden Tate was? Okay, should we have a look where Golden Tate was? Just in case we can't see him, let's get a telescope out and let's physically find out where Golden Tate was. Because as much as I love and I have a lot of respect for Brandon Lee Gouton over at Bleeding Green Nation, he put a tweet out the other day that was very skewed in favour of not Golden Tate, which was the most grammatically correct sentence I've ever said. So Golden Tate's first 2 games with the Eagles, after being traded, were 12 targets, 7 receptions, 67 yards, no touchdowns, a longest of 15 yards, 1 rush for -8 and 3 punts for 9. Ooh, bad! Tate's done nothing! Tate is very bad! That is abysmal through 2 games! He got a 3rd round pick! Do you want to know what he was doing against the Saints? Just pump the brakes a second, put the pitchforks down, breathe. Golden Tate led your team in receiving yards. Golden Tate caught 5 passes for 48 yards, which is more than any other receiver on the team. He was also targeted more than any other receiver on the team, with 8 targets. Alshon Jeffrey got 5, Zach Ertz got 3. What's 5 plus 3? 8, sorry, 8. So you're telling me that Golden Tate's 48 yards on 8 targets were the exact same as Alshon Jeffrey his 33 yards, and Zach Ertz's 15. So Golden Tate was just as effective, or ineffective, depending which way you view it, as Zach Ertz, who is on a historical season, looking to break every record, including Jason Witten's, and Alshon Jeffrey's #1 receiving status. You're telling me that Golden Tate, of all people on this team, who has been with the team for 3 weeks, played in 2 games, 5 receptions, 48 yards, led the team in receiving yards. That is where Golden Tate is. You cannot sit there after that game and say, where is Golden Tate? That is such a ridiculous reaction of everything else that's going on. Say he doesn't get open, say he can't find separation, say Wentz is forcing the ball, but do not ask where he is. When he is leading the team in targets and yards, not on. That's just, no, you're looking for something that's not there. This ain't it, Chief. You're looking for an excuse why this offense isn't producing. It is not the player they traded a 3rd round pick for. He's giving you 3rd round pick value. Someone who's not would be Zach Ertz. Someone who is not would be Alshon Jeffrey in that game. And that, of course, is surely going to come back to coaching, right? Surely it all comes back to coaching. And if we're going to talk about coaching, we have to talk about the defense. Excuse me, I'm battling man flu here. It's not been a good weekend. Maybe it's too much shouting at the Eagles. Who knows? But if the Eagles, on their first scripted drive of the game, having spent all week of wanting to start fast, they get a penalty on kickoff, they go 3 and out, and then the Saints score a touchdown. Yeah, that's starting fast. Do you know, actually, that is starting fast, isn't it? That's brilliant, that. What a great fast start. I'm glad we spent a whole week talking about starting quickly, because that was as starting quickly to demolish a season as you could possibly. Just get the heartache out of the way. Just go straight in for the no worry about it's not you, it's me. Just go straight in with, yeah, see you later. I'm gonna cheat with your best mate. Like, that is literally what the game plan was there. It felt like, from the perspective of Eagles fans. But then you get onto defense. If we're talking about coaching, forget any plays or metrics or stats or whatever. The fact that the Eagles had 1 quarterback hit, 1, on a pocket. This isn't Russell Wilson. Drew Brees is not zipping around the field like Patrick Mahomes on speed trying to get the ball down the field. This man is not even Andrew Luck running out of the pocket. Drew Brees is in the latter stages of his career. He is having an exceptional season, make no mistake about it, but he is not a dual threat quarterback. And believe me, at age 39, when he's completing nearly 80% of his passes this month, in fact in November that number is 75.8, you know he's going to be sat in the pocket looking for receivers. If there's ever a game you're going to sack a quarterback, you're going to pressure him to make a wrong decision, you'd like to think it was this one. Especially given that if we look back at Drew Brees' most recent weeks, he's been on absolute fire. Absolute fire. He hasn't thrown an interception since the win over Minnesota. He's thrown 1 all season. 1. In fact, the only defense that made him look marginally okay were the Giants. The New York Giants constantly forced Brees to run around and get out of pressure. He ended up having somehow 4 rushing attempts for -1 yard, so that's a thing. But in that game, Brees completed 56%. I'm not saying Brees looked normal, he looked human. He has been performing like an alien this season. It's absolutely crazy. The man is firing off a clip like no other. It's like he's got a cannon for an arm and has got an aimbot on Modern Warfare 2. So the Eagles, knowing they have got a dominant front 4, they have got a very, very speedy edge rush and a dominant interior lineman in Fletcher Cox, hit him once. Drew Brees is sat in the pocket completing a Sudoku puzzle, a Sudoku puzzle, right? He's sat on Amazon doing his Christmas shopping. He's ordering it for next week on Amazon Prime. He's even filming a new advert for a dreaded Microsoft Surface that no one's going to buy. And then completes 22% of his pass, or 22 out of 30 passes. That is not good enough defensively. And now that brings us to the cornerbacks, because of course if receivers are getting so open against the secondary, the pass rush has less time to get there. But the thing is, Drew Brees isn't, firing slants left, right and centre. Brees isn't taking checkdowns. He's not like Kirk Cousins. He's not like even Andrew Luck earlier this year. He's averaging, in that game, one of the most ridiculous numbers. He's averaging 12 yards per passing attempt. That is literally his second highest of the season. The only other time he averaged it that high was when he lit up the Vikings defense. The only time he's thrown more than 3 touchdowns this year was against the Rams. Like, someone stop him. He's not there, just sat taking checkdowns. He's getting receivers open downfield. And we can talk about the cornerbacks. Like, I still, to this day, don't have a clue what Chandon Sullivan was doing on that completion to Traquan Smith, where he turns around, his whole body just leaps and turns with both arms above his head like some Fortnite celebration, waving to someone in the crowd while the ball goes the complete opposite direction over his head. Absolutely unreal. But the thing is, if we're talking defense, you have to acknowledge that, of course, the team did lose key components. Now, luckily, I don't know how much I can actually say, because I know a lot of it's going to be quite hush-hush, or by the time this goes out, it might not be. But as far as I'm aware, none of those injuries are deemed serious. So I had a chat with someone, I say last night, it was probably about 5 a.m. this morning, but it wasn't that serious. So no one is expected to miss significant time, other than maybe Jordan Hicks, who's got a calf injury. That could be week to week. That's what I've been told early on. They're waiting on MRIs, but the initial judgment is that nothing's too serious. But even so, in that moment, your entire secondary is gone. Gone. Like, the whole thing. Week 1, you had Ronald Darby, Sidney Jones, Jalen Mills. They were your first 3 corners, they're gone. Safeties, Rodney McLeod. And it's got even to a point where you're looking back at the safeties that are taking hits. Like, Corey Graham had to come in and make an impact, and that's just not gone well. Avonte Maddox then moves to safety. He's gone. Corey Graham's back at safety. If your lone safety is now Corey Graham, that's just a problem, isn't it? It just is. Let's be honest. But you've then got a secondary comprised of Chandon Sullivan, Devontae Borsby. Here again, we've had this discussion before. Is it Borsby or Bowlesby? Because if I say Bowlesby, it's, Devontae Borsby. Doesn't compute. But Devontae Borsby. And then it's just, I don't know what you're expecting. Like, Trey Sullivan's out there doing, like, his first snap's a penalty on the kickoff. I don't know what more you want, really. Like, this secondary now has got to a point where it was purely practice squad players. It was purely guys who are undrafted, sat on the practice squad. The best part of all of that, right, is that DeAndre Hall, who the team signed for a lack of cornerback depth, wasn't even active. He wasn't even active. Cravon LeBlanc was out there doing bits, but DeAndre Hall from the Bears, who was signed earlier this year, wasn't even there. You can't write it. You legit cannot make that up. This secondary is a bunch. It's like a preseason week 4 outfit against an elite wide receiving group, and the Saints were just toying with them all afternoon because the defensive line couldn't do anything, the cornerbacks couldn't do anything, no one could do anything, and Drew Brees and the Saints went off for an absolutely astonishing night of offense. But if I am Jim Schwartz, and I'm looking at this game, there is one thing I should have done that I absolutely didn't do. You know, there's that saying, as you grow up now, where you kind of move on from something or someone, and you look back, or maybe you still follow their social medias or something like that, and you see them doing really well for themselves. You see them kind of succeeding, and you could get into a relationship and be happy, but you kind of know that was the best you had. Right? That's fine, but what if you could still get it? Jim, Malcolm Jenkins is an all-pro safety. You've got Nigel Bradham, Jordan Hicks, and Camus Grugier-Hill. Now, I know that Grugier-Hill is not a designated starter, although he absolutely should be. For some reason, Malcolm Jenkins is starting at that third linebacker spot. Now, I know he is a run defense machine, but, Not, not when they're putting up 173 yards on the ground, they're not. Why, instead of playing Avonte Maddox, a rookie corner, at safety, would you not move Malcolm Jenkins back? Why, instead of leaving Corey Graham on his own, would you not move Malcolm Jenkins back? Why, when even everyone else around him has fallen down and Jenkins is the last viable option, and you know how good he is because you know how good it's been before, and he had a great season alongside Rodney McLeod just not too long ago, why would you still leave him inside the box and run cover 3 so your two corners, who at this point are Chandon Sullivan and Craven LeBlanc, are stood outside against Michael Thomas? It doesn't make sense. They need safety help and they've got nothing. They have got no communication because they've never played an NFL game or a severe lack of them. You've got an all-pro veteran safety who has been on this team since 2014. And giving it to you every single week as a defensive leader. And you're going to stick him at linebacker to do what? Get 9 tackles, that's great. When you're down by that many points and you're being torched on the back end time after time, it doesn't matter. You put him on Kamara and Kamara still scores a touchdown. Move Jenkins back to safety before it's too late. Because it is just not the right thing. Like, you know what is right. And again, if you're in that situation, you know what is right. You know what works best. And you're refusing to do it and let everything else crumble around you because you're stubborn in your ways, you think it's better. We saw it with Chip Kelly, we saw it with Jim Schwartz. Hell, it even fits that damn analogy. But you've got to move Malcolm Jenkins back because at this point, he is an all-pro safety. He could walk into any team on this league and be a starter at the safety position. I know your lovely hybrid defense loves him at linebacker. But at this point, needs must. And you crave versatility. Jenkins is among the most versatile players in the league. Get him back there before it is all a lost cause. It's too much pressure on this back end. And if you think it's bad now, if these injuries are week to week and they're anything more than a 1-game span, do you want to know who we've got round the corner? Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, Evan Engram. Do you want to know some of the games that remain on this schedule before all the curtains close? Because it is not looking good. You've got the Rams, who need no introduction at this point. You've got the Texans, who... DeAndre Hopkins against Chandon Sullivan is going to be the most comical event of the year. If that happens. You've then got to face the Cowboys with Amari Cooper. Oh, I can't wait for Cravon LeBlanc or DeAndre Hall to get his hands on Amari Cooper. What fun that's going to be. I can't wait for week 17 where the Washington Redskins, who are now going to be without Alex Smith, who are struggling, let's be brutally honest, can line up with whichever quarterback. I mean, it could be EJ Manuel at this point. I really don't know where they're looking. But they can line up with their receivers, who, as we all know, have a bit of speed. Someone like Michael Floyd, someone like Josh Doctson, or even Jamison Crowder. You're telling me that you don't need that safety help, that you don't need Malcolm Jenkins over the top. Your entire secondary has fallen apart because you have pushed Jenkins into the linebacker spot and refused to bring him out of it. I get the whole you've made your bed, sleep in it, but you've got an opportunity to change those stars. If you think you've made a wrong decision and you've cut someone off when you shouldn't have and you're like, damn, kind of missed that, you know, and you know that's always going to be there, it's still a thing, you can still go and get it, it's not too late. But make sure you get it before they move off and find someone else, because that's what Malcolm Jenkins at this point is effectively doing. This defense is a mess. An absolute mess. And a lot of it because Schwartz won't adapt. And I'm not even talking schematically. I'm talking this is a coordinator who loves versatility, who prays and craves for it with every player that walks into his building. And when it is called upon as a primal instinct where you need it more than ever, he refuses to use the players that have it in the highest quantities. It's an embarrassment. So what are you going to do? You've got the New York Giants coming up, who are heating up now. 2 wins in a row. Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, Evan Engram. Have fun if Malcolm Jenkins is playing linebacker. That's all we're saying on that. But Oh wow, we're 35 minutes into the show. Again, if you're new, if you're enjoying me shouting about the Eagles, I'm going to need you to hit that subscribe button down below. Again, we cannot grow this podcast without you. We want to change the way that Philadelphia sports are reported on. We've got daily content, including articles from myself at phillysportsnetwork.com. But we're not done yet. We just, we're getting plugs in because we don't have advertisements. We're not that big just yet. But what we do want to do is a new segment of the show, which of course we introduced last week, called Thank You Next, where I have 30 seconds to answer your questions that you've sent in to the show. So I took to Twitter after last night's loss to get some of your feedback and hopefully get some of these questions answered on the show. So without further ado, here is today's edition of Thank You Next. Now, Alan Stevens starts this off at Philly Fanatic by saying, you think there's any chance Mailata can take over at left tackle and Peters comes back and kicks in at left guard? I don't think so. I think there is the potential for Jordan Mailata to play some snaps this season, but I really don't think it's going to take Peters coming in at left guard. I think Peters is struggling enough outside as it is. There is a severe lack of interior guard depth. We're looking at Wisniewski and Sayamalo now playing clinical snaps every single game, especially if this Jason Kelce injury is anything substantial. So I don't think so. If Mailata comes in, it will be at tackle, maybe due to another injury though. So thank you. Next, Daniel Ratajak. So thank you so much for your question. He says, after Carson's game yesterday, do I believe he bounces back? I genuinely think he has to. If he doesn't, it's going to be a very rocky road from here, and we already know that pressure is now beginning to build. Things are getting a little bit messy inside the head of Carson Wentz, or at least inside the head of everyone that's trying to criticise him. How are we going to stop these receivers coming down the stretch? Christ knows. I haven't got a clue. So thank you for your question, Daniel. I hope I touched on it just a minute ago. Thank you. Next, the next question we've got. Oh, this could be the trickiest one. I have only got 5 players I can save for next year, not named Wentz, Cox, Jeffrey or Johnson. Who am I saving? First up, Jason Kelce. I think that is an absolute must. It's tricky. Oh no, I need more than 30 seconds for this. I would definitely save Jason Kelce. Outside of that, maybe. Oh, this is a nightmare. Okay, we're well over 30 seconds here. Let me take a pause. 5 players I can save that are basically none of the cornerstones on this team. Dallas got it. I think it's got a huge, tremendous upside. Sidney Jones I would like to keep. Jordan Hicks, I think if he can overcome injury, will be key. And Nigel Braden, because the guy is just a monster. Oh, it means Malcolm Jenkins is going, but he's a linebacker anyway, and I've saved 2. Shots fired, doesn't matter. Thank you. Next. Casanova Frankenstein, what a name. Is Nigel Braden better in the middle than Hicks, and is Hicks overrated? I don't think Hicks is overrated. I think the problem is the guy can't stay healthy. This is literally the 3rd year out of 4 he's had an injury that's going to cost him time on the field. But I do think Braden is one of the best at his position. In the middle, he can be just as productive, but he never gets the credit he deserves because he's so consistently good. Also, if Jim Schwartz and the Eagles hypothetically did part ways, who's the best in-house candidate as defensive coordinator? That is a very good question. Very good question, I should say. I like Ken Flagey, like the linebackers coach. I think that could be a good upgrade. I would say Corey Undlin, but at some point you've got to look at this defensive coordinator spot and say, hey, the defensive backs have struggled since you've arrived. There is no change no matter on who we draft. I don't think a change at the DB coach position is entirely out of the question. So that would be the way that I'm looking at right now. We've got another question from the same man. So again, Casanova Frankenstein. Why does Corey Clement look like a completely different player in year 2? I don't know. It looks like he's lost a step. Maybe it's injury related. He was battling it through the off-season and he's not 100%. Maybe there's something more. I genuinely don't know. But thank you. Next. The other thing we've got, if we did have a question on our Facebook page, should Mike Groh be fired? This offense is terrible. What's even more worrying is that Mike Groh was the passing coordinator for the Rams in 2016. So he should be well equipped for this job. The thing is, it is not... I don't know. I don't know how much of this you can put on Mike Groh because we really don't know how much he's doing behind the scenes. Like, we don't know what the game planning is. It was very transparent last year where Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator. He ran the red zone. He did this. He did that. They have lovely relationships and romantic dinners and the rest of it. We don't know that with Mike Groh. Everything is, I'm not telling you my game plan. I'm not telling you how I run this offense. So who knows? My main question would be, if we're looking at Doug Peterson and say, you need an assistant coach to look semi-competent and put up more than 7 points against the Saints, that's on the coach, not the coordinator. Thank you, next. That is another episode of the Outside Insider in the books, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for sending in your questions as well. They really do mean a lot. I love having you as part of the show. If you want to stick around again, please hit that subscribe button. This is what makes this show so fun. We need your support. Rate it 5 stars on iTunes. Even if you don't have it, just get on that website on iTunes.com. Follow the link, rate it 5 stars, and never go on it again. It's the best way you can support this channel, this website, and it doesn't cost you a penny. So from myself, Liam Jenkins, make sure you stay locked in to phillysportsnetwork.com. Make sure you stay locked in to the Philly Sports Network YouTube channel. We'll see you next time for another episode of The Outside Insider.